Kamloops North Thompson.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you to the member from Penticton for finding time for me to slot into his estimates. A couple of questions for the Minister. We have a situation in my riding. It started about 2.5 years ago. It started in Clearwater with a group called the Tiny House Warriors. They were moved out of that provincial park. They moved on to a piece of Crown land in Blue River. They've been there now for over 2 years. They have go up to Valemount from time to time. They cause a lot of disruption in the town. They scream and they yell. They drive people out of the campground, private business right next door, continually. People cannot stay overnight. If the minister is unsure of that, I invite him to come to Blue River, Madam Chair, and spend a night or two in the campground and get the full experience if he would like. The town of Blue River has tolerated this for 2 years. They are fed up with the Tiny House Warriors. They have, in fact, their area director for the regional district today got the regional district board to agree to fire off a very stern letter to the premier demanding a meeting, face-to-face meeting with the premier. The two area chiefs, duly elected chiefs, both from the SIMP as well as the Tecumsehs, have issued statements very strongly against the Tiny House Warriors, making it very clear they do not represent their views. The chief of the SIMP has made it very clear that they feel they are being left out on the cold by the government because they fully support the Trans Mountain Pipeline project, and this government very obviously does not. What discussions has the minister tried to engage with this protest group, with the community of Blue River, to try to find some resolution? I'm not asking, I want to be very clear to the minister, because I've heard other answers today. I'm not asking questions about policing, and I'm not asking questions about Crown prosecutions. I will save those for the Attorney General and the Solicitor General. I am asking specifically the Minister of Indigenous Relations, through the chair, what direct action his ministry has taken to try to actually bring some peaceful resolution to this problem that's been ongoing for 2.5 years now, all the way from Valemount down to Clearwater for the residents of that corridor along a project that his government does not support.
Minister.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks to the member for the question. So the request for formal engagement has only been received recently. It was from SIMP, I think it was this week, I believe. So we'll take that meeting, our ministry will, and we will follow up with them.
Kamloops North Thompson, just reminder to raise your hand so I know that you have further questions, please. Okay, sorry about that, Madam Chair. Well, Minister, this has been going on for 2.5 years. The community itself, Blue River, has been making requests for the government to step in over the last over a year for sure. I understand that the SIMC have just made their formal request, but the community itself has asked for government to intercede in one way or another. And so what I'm hearing from the Indigenous Relations Minister, Madam Chair, is that although the community has been calling out for the better part of over a year for some sort of discussion to even happen, which one would assume would come from the Indigenous Relations Ministry for discussion purposes with the protesters, no action was going to be taken until a chief very publicly, in a very public meeting, called out the government for lack of action, followed it up with unprecedented media stories with the neighboring chief about the lack of action from government, all the while, and citing in that very public meeting, and as cited many times, that the warriors do not, the Tiny House Warriors do not represent the SIMP, they do not represent the Tecumsehs, they do not have permission by either nations to be there protesting. The town does not want them there protesting any longer. Many people in the valley, from Valemount all the way down to Clearwater, feel that this is a direct result of the government taking a lack of interest because of the location, the remoteness of the location, but also because it's a protest around the Trans Mountain Pipeline, which this government has vowed to use every tool in the toolbox to stop. Yet earlier today, Madam Chair, I had to listen at length to the minister justify Nathan Cullen being hired on to make sure that discussions happened between the community itself and the Wet'suwet'en people, and to provide that space for discussion by similar types of scenarios along a project that the government did approve of. A contract that, as the minister said, was reasonably average. I would hate to know what the top end of the reasonably average is. If Mr. Cullen is in the average, that must mean there's a whole lot of consultants getting paid a lot more money than even what Mr. Cullen is getting paid. So to the Indigenous Relations Minister, how much budget and how many dollars are they expecting to budget to try to resolve a dispute that has been going on for more than 2 years now and has actually been percolating in the background long before the encampments actually got set up?
Minister.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And there's a lot covered in that question. Our ministry just received a formal engagement, a letter. I told the member that we'll take that meeting, and that's with respect and recognition of the nations involved, and we will follow up with them.
Member Kamloops North Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, the question is, the community itself, the community of Blue River, has been asking for engagement for well over a year from this government. The community of Blue River has been asking for, at a minimum, dialogue, an intermediary between the protesters and the community. The government has ignored that completely, at the same time going out and spending an exorbitant amount of money, in my opinion, to hire NDP insider consultants to work at very healthy wages that may be considered what's in the norm. Certainly, there must be some sort of NDP insider that could be hired as a consultant over the last year and a half to have helped the people in Valemount down all the way through to Clearwater to at least have some discussions. Is the minister saying that there will only be discussions with the SIMP and there will not be discussions with the town or the protesters?
Minister.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So I would remind again to the member that we just received, the government just received formal engagement, request for formal engagement this week. So, and I did say we will take that meeting and we will follow up with them. The issue has been in place for a couple of years now. I know other ministries, Flynn Ward, Parks, Municipal Affairs and Housing, and my ministry have been involved in informal dialogue with the communities that the member has cited and the nation. Over that 2-year period. We have just received a formal, a request for formal engagement. We will take that. And if the member has knowledge of criminal activity in the meantime, or any public safety issues, that needs to be addressed through the RCMP, and I would urge him to do that.
Member Kamloops North Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, the cold reality is this. The first answer the minister said, he didn't indicate that he had done even back channel or quiet conversations with the communities, with the protesters, or with the nations. That would have been appreciated in the first answer when I first asked if there had been any dialogue taken. Secondly, the community is fed up with the advice of phone the RCMP. They phone the RCMP. The RCMP hands are tied because Crown won't move forward with any charges. Missing in all of this is the Indigenous Relations Minister, Madam Chair, who at the same time makes sure that large contracts for consulting go out to try to do the exact same thing that this valley is being asked for. This valley is being asked to be treated the same way as the minister decided to treat communities in northern BC on a pipeline route that the government supported. They are not. We have 8-year-olds trying to go for a swim in Blue River on the beach with their parents being yelled at and called white supremacists and rapists. They turn around and ask their parents, what is a rapist? That is the situation Blue River is dealing with on a regular basis. So I do hope that the minister will come up with the appropriate funds to get proper dialogue going, meaningful dialogue going, to see what it is the protesters do or don't want. The protesters are currently protesting a man camp that's not even being built in Blue River as we speak. And it's shocking, Madam Chair, because it sounds like the minister either was totally unaware of this situation over the last 2 years, which should fall directly under the purview of his ministry in terms of trying to ease relationships between Indigenous nations and other communities, and decided to sit silent if he did know about it. Either way, it's not acceptable. The community has been asking for help. They've been asking for help ever since the first encampment was set up in the North Thompson Park 2.5 years ago. Valemount had a bit of a flashpoint about 3 weeks ago. One would hope the minister would know about that. It is simply not acceptable and not good enough. And I do hope that the minister today can commit that the same type of resources and dollars that are being expended for Mr. Cullen to write reports that we may or may not get to see will be expended for the residents of Blue River, Valemount, and Clearwater. Can the minister commit to a similar level of engagement and dollars being spent as we're seeing with the Wet'suwet'en issue up north?
Minister.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We just received this week a formal request for engagement from the SIMP. As I mentioned to the member already, we're trying to make things move quickly in government sometimes, and this is this week, and I have committed to the member that we will, this is the first written request for such a thing. We have had discussions before on this, but the request will be honored. We will take the meeting and we will commit to following up.